The Forbidden Book of Saint Cyprian, the whisper of a book. There are books that seem to be made of paper and ink, bound in leather or cloth, lying quietly on dusty shelves waiting to be read. And then there are books that live in the imagination of generations, half real, half legend, haunting the borders between faith and fear. The Book of Saint Cyprian belongs to the second kind. For centuries it has been spoken of in hushed tones, whispered about by peasants in Spanish villages, treasured by witches in Portuguese mountains, hidden in drawers by Mexican curanderos, and feared by those who believe that to open it is to invite disaster. It is said that the book contains all the forbidden knowledge of sorcery that one man ever possessed. That man was Cyprian of Antioch, a sorcerer who, before becoming a Christian saint and martyr, had dedicated his youth to the study of magic, necromancy, and communication with spirits. According to the legend, before abandoning his dark arts, he poured everything he had learned into a single volume. That book would survive the centuries as a grimoire, the most feared of all grimoires, known simply as the Book of Saint Cyprian. But is it history? Is it myth? Or is it something that thrives in the twilight zone where belief and imagination merge? To answer that, one must go back to the beginning, to the 3rd century of our era, when the Roman Empire still ruled, and the world was a cauldron of religions, philosophies, and mysteries. The young sorcerer of Antioch, Cyprian, according to tradition, was born in the city of Antioch around the year 250 CE. Antioch was no ordinary city. It was one of the jewels of the Eastern Roman Empire, a crossroads where Greek philosophy, Roman law, Jewish tradition, and countless local cults converged. To be born in Antioch was to be exposed to 1,000 voices, each claiming to hold the truth. The young Cyprian showed early signs of curiosity and a restless mind. Some accounts claim he was sent away as a child to study with the magicians of Mount Olympus, where the remnants of ancient Greek mysteries were still practiced. Others insist he traveled even farther, to Babylon and Egypt, where the last heirs of the Chaldean astrologers and Egyptian priests guarded the secrets of the stars and the dead. What is certain is that, in the legend, Cyprian became a master of arcane arts before he was 20. He was said to command the winds, to speak with shadows, to make spirits appear at his bidding. Unlike the rustic sorcerers who sold charms and amulets in markets, Cyprian was depicted as a scholar of darkness, a man who compiled knowledge systematically. He was a sorcerer with the mind of a philosopher. It was during this time, so the legend says, that he began to write. He recorded incantations in the margins of scrolls, collected prayers both pagan and sinister, experimented with formulas that combined the words of ancient hymns with the names of forbidden spirits. These writings, scattered and incomplete, would later be imagined as the raw material for what would become his book, The Conversion. Every legend of darkness eventually meets the light. Cyprian's turning point came when he was asked to cast a spell of love on a Christian maiden named Justina. A pagan youth, enamored of her beauty, begged Cyprian to use his powers to make her surrender. Cyprian accepted the challenge. He invoked his spirits, whispered the formulas, prepared the offerings. But each time he tried to direct his magic against Justina, something extraordinary happened. His spells dissolved. The young woman, it was said, defended herself not with charms or talismans, but with the sign of the cross and with prayer. The sorcerer grew frustrated. He tried again and again, calling upon darker and darker powers, until even the demon he served, so the legend narrates, confessed that he could do nothing against the sign of Christ. For the first time, Cyprian saw his power collapse. Shaken, he abandoned his sorcery and sought baptism. The sorcerer became a Christian, later a bishop, and eventually, under the persecutions of Emperor Diocletian, a martyr. Along with Justina, he was executed for refusing to renounce the faith. The church canonized him as Saint Cyprian, protector against witchcraft and demons. And yet, the legend whispered, before he abandoned his old ways, Cyprian did not destroy his knowledge. He wrote it down, binding the words into a book that would survive long after his conversion and death. The birth of a legend. For centuries, there is no trace of such a book. The church venerated Saint Cyprian as a martyr, not as a magician. His feast day was celebrated on September 26th. His story circulated in hagiographies, where he was remembered as an example of repentance and triumph of Christianity over sorcery. But among the people, especially in rural regions of Spain and Portugal, another memory took root. The peasants spoke of Cyprian not only as a saint, but also as someone who knew the secrets. They began to believe that his book, the book he supposedly wrote before his conversion, had survived. By the Middle Ages, whispers about a Cyprianillo, a little Cyprian book, circulated. It was said to contain prayers that combined the sacred and the profane, invocations of saints, alongside words of power older than Rome. It promised protection against witches, but also gave formulas to dominate them. It was both a shield and a sword. This duality made the book unique. It was not entirely black magic, nor entirely white. It was a mirror of Cyprian himself, half sorcerer, half saint. The Iberian Shadow. By the 17th and 18th centuries, printed versions of the Book of Saint Cyprian began to appear in Spain and Portugal. These were small, cheaply bound volumes, often printed clandestinely, passed from hand to hand in villages. The book was known by many names: Libro de San Cipriano, Ciprianillo, Tesoro del Hechicero, the Sorcerer's Treasure. Each edition was slightly different. Some emphasized Christian prayers and exorcisms. Others included pages of spells for love, wealth, revenge. A few contained instructions for summoning spirits or making pacts with infernal powers. Rural folklore gave it an aura of danger. It was said that if you opened the book without protection, misfortune would fall upon you. Some believed that just owning it invited the devil into your house. There were stories of families who threw the book into rivers, only to see it float back to their door. Others claimed that the book could not be burned. It would leap out of the fire unharmed. At the same time, curanderos and witches treated it as a treasure. They used its formulas to heal, to bless crops, to locate hidden riches. In Galicia, in the north of Spain, the Ciprianillo became so common that even priests whispered about it. The Atlantic Crossing. With the voyages of conquest and colonization, the book traveled across the Atlantic. In Mexico, Peru, and Brazil, it found fertile ground. These were lands where indigenous beliefs and African traditions mixed with Catholicism, producing rich systems of folk magic. In rural Mexico, curanderos incorporated the Libro de San Cipriano into their practices. They used its prayers alongside indigenous rituals, blending them into a hybrid system. In Brazil, where African religions thrived under the cover of Catholic saints, the book was read in secret as a manual of power. It was in Latin America that the legend of the book's curse grew strongest. People whispered that anyone who tried to read it aloud risked losing their mind or seeing spirits appear at night. There were tales of men who invoked riches with the book only to die shortly after, strangled by invisible hands. And yet, the book never disappeared. It remained hidden in trunks, sold in esoteric shops, passed down in families who swore never to open it except in dire need. The contents. What does the book actually contain? The answer depends on which edition one reads. Some versions include long lists of prayers, invocations of saints, psalms, litanies for protection. These sections look almost like a devotional manual, but alongside them appear formulas that are undeniably magical. Rituals to make someone fall in love, spells to find buried treasures, conjurations to dominate spirits, instructions for making pacts with the devil, sealed with blood, charms for healing or for causing illness. In some editions, there is a section called El Tesoro del Hechicero, the Sorcerer's Treasure. Here, the text describes how to summon spirits that guard hidden gold. It is this section that gave rise to countless stories of peasants digging at night, guided by the book, hoping to find riches. The strange mixture of Catholic piety and raw sorcery makes the book unique. One can find the Our Father prayer on one page and an invocation of Lucifer on the next. It is as if the book never chose between light and darkness, fear and fascination. By the 19th century, the Book of Saint Cyprian had become a staple of esoteric literature in the Iberian world. Bookshops sold cheap editions, often with lurid covers showing demons, saints, or treasure chests. Yet even as it became more available, its reputation remained terrifying. Parents warned children never to touch it. Priests denounced it from pulpits. Superstitions multiplied. One story told of a farmer in Galicia who, after buying the book, began to hear knocks on his walls at night. Another tale spoke of a woman in Mexico who opened the book and saw blood drip from its pages. In Portugal, it was said that the devil himself came to claim anyone who read it after midnight. The paradox is clear. The more the book was feared, the more it was desired. People longed for the power it promised, even as they trembled before its dangers. The Saint of Witches. An irony runs through the entire legend of the book. Its supposed author, Saint Cyprian, is officially a saint of the Catholic Church. He is venerated as a protector against witchcraft, invoked in exorcisms, celebrated as a martyr. And yet, in the world of folk magic, he is revered as the patron of witches and magicians, the saint who understands their ways because he once practiced them. In some villages of Spain, peasants prayed to Saint Cyprian for protection from spells. In parts of Brazil, witches lit candles to him as their patron. In Mexico, his name was whispered both in church and in the marketplace of charms. This double identity, saint and sorcerer, kept the legend alive. No other figure bridges the world of Christian devotion and occult fear as he does. Modern times. Today, the Book of Saint Cyprian is still in print. Esoteric publishers in Spain, Mexico, and Brazil sell editions, often marketed with titles like The Complete Book of Saint Cyprian, Sorcerer's Treasure. In bookstores and online, it sits beside tarot manuals and guides to Santeria. Some modern occultists dismiss it as nothing more than a folk grimoire, a hodgepodge of prayers and spells with little coherence. Others treasure it as a rare survival of popular magic, a window into the spiritual imagination of peasants across centuries. But for ordinary people, its aura remains. To own the book is to flirt with danger. To open it is to risk contact with forces unseen. In villages, the old stories are still told, of books that return when burned, of shadows that rise when the prayers are read aloud. The endless book. The truth is that there may never have been a single book of Saint Cyprian. What we have are dozens of compilations, adaptations, inventions. The book is more legend than artifact, more fear than fact. And yet, its legend is powerful. It reminds us of the human hunger for forbidden knowledge, the tension between light and darkness, the way stories grow in the spaces where religion and magic meet. Perhaps the Book of Saint Cyprian exists not so much on shelves, but in the imagination of those who believe. Every whispered prayer for protection, every secret spell for love, every story of treasure found and life lost, they are all pages of the endless book. And as long as people continue to fear and desire it, the book will never close. Thanks for watching.